Welcome to the podcast that buffs your Hearthstone game. This is Velen's Chosen.
Not all who wander are lost.
Greetings, Visionaries. Welcome to Velen's Chosen. Whether you are a competitive player, you are an arena specialist, a deck building visionary, just like having a bit of fun, we can help you buff your game and achieve your Hearthstone goals. Welcome to 160 of the episodes. We are going to be doing a duo cast this week between Grant, Maximus, myself, and no one, because Eve is not here this week. And we actually have an update from her for you in just a little bit. And this week, we're going to be talking about Jackie Chan's new Howlfiend Warlock, because burning cards is fun, especially when they're nerfed. And we're also going to talk about nerf cards as well. Grant, welcome to the show. Welcome back. Welcome back.
I feel welcome, and I'm glad to be back. And I'm glad to be podcasting with my friend Rob.
Oh, good. Oh, good. All right, guys, we'll see you next week.
That's enough podcasting.
The entire podcast was the pre-show, in case you're wondering.
I have no more stamina for this. I'm just so fatigued. Life is hard in my first world problem
This
area.
is one of the rare times where Grant and I are actually bachelor padding it for the 24, or rather, at least the 6 hours in which we've kind of touch based and or have after the show will be complete bachelor padding, because my wife is out at a cool event today that she basically got invited to. Didn't understand what the word was. Got picked up at 8:30, and she's like, "I don't know what we're doing or when I'm coming home, but I'm going." And I said, "Am I invited?" And she said, "Yes, but you have to podcast." And I cried a little. And so that's what we're doing.
Did you die a little? Did you die a little, though?
It's probably coming, but it's not yet, because I have a responsibility to uphold.
So those of you who one day are going to read a resume that says Rob May on it, you're going to know that he is a dedicated... What?
Run.
Ron May. Run? No. Oh, it's like Ron May? Is that your what? Have I got it wrong all this time? Not Ron. There we go.
You're not wrong. That's my next username.
Oh.
Not wrong.
Oh, goodness. I've been bachelor padding it since last Thursday. My wife went up north to, he went to the land where Rob's from, Indiana. She's up in Michigan City right now.
The rolling single hill of Indiana, right? The crossroads of America, basically saying the state that you have to go through to get somewhere else that's better. Now that is a joke that I ripped off of another comedian, so it's not mine originally. But if you guys want some fun, go to YouTube, search. I think you could probably find it by saying like comedian, state jokes. And they do they basically have a tagline comedic phrase for every state in America. And the best one besides Indiana for me was the North and South Dakota one. It says North Dakota, not South Dakota. And South Dakota, definitely not North Dakota.
Yeah, we don't even know those guys. Dakota, as they say up there. Hey, where are you from? I'm from South Dakota. That's how they talk. I don't get it. I have tried to get it, and I was like, "How do you? We say Dakota with a
Decoder.
D.
Decoder.
Where are you from? That's how the Southerners say it. Decoder.
You going up in
Like,
there,
was that like a ring or
decoders?
something?
Eh?
Yeah,
I think they said something like for
box.
Michigan that Michigan has two parts, one part stupid, one part crazy, or something like that. Where it's like they're basically the joke of the North Side, and then oh geez, sorry for the in-game sounds, folks. I'm trying to check the Tavern Brawl right now, and I get spammed with all this event stuff.
Me too. I don't even know what it was. I didn't play it this week.
Monster
I think I looked at
Smash.
my phone and goes, "Oh yeah, Monster Smash."
That's a good
No, I didn't play
transition.
it.
Let's talk about something Hearthstone. I'll catch you in a flash. Take control of the Witchwood's powerful monsters and misfits. Let's see who rules the Witchwood.
We are so delinquent this week.
We are like 9,000 of prep time this week, you guys. So I'm gonna load up a Tavern Brawl while Grant talks about what's been going on in his week in Hearthstone.
You're gonna load it up mid-show.
Hey, we have to at least meme real good if we're not gonna give you guys good content. Am I right?
Well, what do you classify as good content? Because good content can also be very just pure entertainment. Yes, I mean people watch sitcoms
you're not
for no
wrong.
information all the
You're
time.
not wrong. This is the
right?
Seinfeld of Hearthstone podcast.
The Hearthstone show about nothing.
We're the Hearthstone show about Overwatch and personal lives and bachelor pads. Welcome to Velen's Chosen this week. This is why we need Eve to come back, because we can't do anything.
We need Eve. It's
So-
kind of like every male at some point in time needs the influence of a female. It's like,
At least,
or else we just sort of
whether
just
it be
take
a
the
spouse
message
or a
back
friend,
anyways.
like they will balance you. It's
True.
great.
You're exactly right. You're exactly right.
So I loaded up the Tavern Brawl, and you basically play as the Shutterwalk or a Murloc. And it looks like I have a spear, and I'm in the Unite the Murlocs Shaman deck.
Oh dear Lord.
With a, I think that they changed the hero power to be a souped up version of ice fishing. So you draw 3 Murlocs from your deck,
Hype.
and you have a few other cards like, what is this card? Unite the Plague of the Murlocs. Give your minions Death Rattle. Summon a random Murloc minion. So if your
Well, now
Murloc
see, it sounds fun, and I
dies-
want to play it now because I have a Murloc quest right now.
Well,
and
get this. The Shutterwalk one says passively all battle cries trigger twice. So that's for both players.
Oh yeah, that's fun.
So
they're
it's
pre-made
great.
decks then.
Yeah, they're pre-made decks. And this is going to
Well,
be
then
real
I can
bad
get
because do you know what Megafin does? Fill your hand
don't
with
even-
random Murlocs. That does nothing twice, by the way. It's not really going to do a whole lot.
Feels like it's a swing and a miss there.
A swing and a miss, as they
Swing and a
say.
miss. Batting 1,000 here, folks.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
Well, that's Tavern Brawl.
That's more or less Tavern Brawl. I don't know how the Shutterwalk guy is going to come back because I've got like 5 Murlocs on the board and I've only played 2 cards.
Yeah, that swarm though.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of influencing wonderful people that make us better people. Eve had many of you who follow us, you probably know that Eve's been MIA for a little while.
Yeah.
Just for reasons. But she had a Twitter post she put out there, but you might have missed it because Twitter's one of those things. Well, frankly, I could post 5 things and have it just get lost in the sea of the many thousands of things that everybody else follows. So we had a little thing that she asked us to read.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Do you want me to read it?
Go ahead.
I'll read it. Okay. You play Tavern Brawl. I'll read.
I just won. One and done. Like
Oh,
we
nice.
say every week, guys. Tavern Brawl, one and done. Actually, that's quite fun. I'm going to do that again sometime this week. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah, it looked fun. So anyways, Eve says, I'm sure many of you have been wondering what's going on me lately.
You got to talk into the mic, Grant. I'm not getting you on here.
Okay, let me try again. I've had to miss quite a few episodes of Velen's Chosen, and Knights of Lore is going to be behind this week as well. And to be honest with you, I'm a pretty private person, and that's not going to change. But what I will say is things aren't great. I've had to move, and where I am, I don't have access to internet. I've looked into options, tried to work out solutions, and finally had to admit, right now I'm just not able to record. I don't know when I will. I have no timeline. So I wanted to let you know I'm sad. I'm brokenhearted. I have to say goodbye. Hopefully it won't be forever. Hopefully I'll be back and we'll pick up where we left off. But I don't know what the future holds. Know that this community has been the most positive gaming community I've ever had the pleasure of being a part of. I'll miss it more than I can say. Love, Eve. So those are her actual words. She typed them. We did not edit them.
And you can find this on
comment them and
Twitter.
say- you can find it on her Twitter page if you want to hunt it down. Just so you know, the what she's kind of expressed to us that she doesn't want to go away, and we don't want her to go away. We're not looking to replace her anytime soon. We're just giving her the space to figure things out. That's the long and the short of it from our end. We want her back really bad, because well, she's the 3rd head of our 3-headed dragon, and she's important to us. And we think she's important to you guys.
And we're not
too, so
exactly a
thank
Hydra that can just regenerate heads, okay?
No, yeah, you cut one off. It's kind of like, well, what do we do now? I don't know.
Yeah.
Kind of like now,
Yeah.
we're just kind of memeing.
Yeah, more or less.
Anyhow, but I have a feeling she'll figure it out. But we didn't want to put pressure on her or give her any kind of deadlines because, well, that's just it just didn't seem right to do. but we care about her and her well-being, and we would really want to have her back when the time is right and she's able to get stuff straightened
Mm-hmm.
out. So send her
And
her
that,
love, and or send her your love to her is what I mean to say.
yeah, and it doesn't necessarily mean that she's not playing the game or that she's not like enjoying what
Right.
she's doing, but it does mean that like she has limitations right now for recording, and a lot of that
Right.
does translate to what she's able to do with the game and other games. Because if you're lacking internet, then you're like kind of locked out to enjoying gaming that involves internet, like Destiny and Hearthstone, unless you're just using up your data plan. And I'm sure that the using up your data plan for Hearthstone is not quite exactly your highest of priorities as a mother, to be honest.
Yeah.
If she is
This
playing,
data.
then she's gonna be able to do it on her own time. So hopefully things can iron out and she can figure out something with her new movement plan and all that jazz. So we'll be the first to let you guys know when she's back. She'll probably just show up on the show and you'll be like, oh, she's back. But we're not even sure if when she does return, if it's gonna be like a one thing and then she'll kind of be going away again. Or we're still like, we don't even know what that's gonna look like when she does return, and if it's gonna be for like a temporary thing or an extended thing. But we are trying to work on something to see if she has some offline ways to like do stuff and then kind of like go to a Wi-Fi spot and like upload, and then we can kind of utilize some of her lore, whether it be through an existing episode or one-shot one. She's not really even sure what she wants to do because, as you know, Eve is really passionate about the lore, and she's told us in the back end that doing lore and recording it in the way that she used to do it on the show when we first started testing it, it was like very short form, and people started asking for more and more and more and more, and it ended up being like, the lore is so rich that you can do it anytime you want, and there's some things you have to pick out that are smaller stories that haven't been explored yet, and then you have like the really good ones that everyone wants are the long ones because they're super involved, like i.e. Ner'zhul, the armor, Frostmourne, into the Lich King, into what happens after you defeat the Lich King, and then now Bolvar takes over the armor.
Yeah.
And there's even whispers now in Battle for Azeroth and in the future, they're like, is this something that you guys would revisit? Is Bolvar going to return as the Lich King, as being a heroic figure? Or is he kind of just banished to be the leader of the Scourge in a passive sense? Like, I don't know what that looks like, because there must always be a Lich King in the lore. So those are just some examples of telling the long form story. And so I'm not really sure what Eve's going to be able to do with her time. So we're kind of just giving her free reign to like choose something. And she has a few things that she's been building on in the past that she might revisit to like finish up that story or continue on or just start something new. So we're in a very, not even a transitionary period for the show, but just kind of like trying to figure things out. So if you guys are out there and you want to, and you're in a format where you're like, hey, I'd love to reach out. We had some people like Mage Death and a couple other folks just pop on. I know we had Pear on a couple weeks ago or a month ago. I had Mac and C's actually reach out to us recently, and she's wanting to come back. So we'll try to get some more personalities on the show for you guys. Grant, did you have any other comments you wanted to mention?
No,
like
I mean,
what we're doing?
it's one of those things. It does allow us to, I mean, as long as we can get the schedules going, I like shows with 3 people personally, so we're gonna try and get more guests on. It'll just mean that I just need to kind of look at who's available and schedules and stuff like that. But I mean, honestly, for the listeners, if you guys have somebody you'd like to recommend, it can be well known, of course, but even people that maybe aren't as well known, so we can get to know them and maybe give them some exposure, and we can introduce them to the community or anything like that. Somebody you know of that's a cool person. We kind of want like I kind of gonna qualify it, not just anybody, because I want people that are people good to know, not just good players that have no personality and can't talk. You know what I mean?
And it sounds rude, but it's like, frankly, not everyone's
rude,
cut out for the podcasting sphere. Even top streamers are just
Right.
like robotic, and as far as how they address things, they could be like the most genius player, but just not very good at being charismatic. It's just not a skill set that everyone has, unfortunately.
And interestingly enough, I've talked to quite a few people that are well known in the community, and they've been totally all about coming on the show. But some of them are like on EU time, and trying to make EU, United States, and Japan time work at the same time is almost impossible. It's awful. So I mean, like, I'm not going to drop names because I don't want you guys to think, oh, But it was
We had
looking
some
really
super
good for a
cool
couple
stuff
people.
going, and just
Yeah, and
couldn't
it's
do
one of
it.
those things that I'm sure if I asked again and like said, let's do it here, they'd probably be agreeable to it. But time zones being what they are, we'll just have to table those things. But yeah, give us some suggestions. Also, all about suggestions for the show. I'll be honest, last week's show about talking about the Vicious Syndicate polarity report, that was from a listener. And I did my homework on it, looked into it, and suggested to Rob. And I thought we had a pretty good show with Megadeth, and it went really
And
well.
get it to us
So that,
early. Get it to us early.
yeah,
Let's us prep. So if you have an idea and you drop it on us on Friday, chances are it's not going to happen for at least a week.
right, right. So, but
especially
that,
if things are the way they are with BlizzCon. You get to us before BlizzCon, and then when I take off, you guys know that I'm not going to be here that week. Like, it's just a thing.
yeah, yeah. That might be a lore week. I'm thinking that the week of BlizzCon, we might just make it a lore week and just put a spacer there.
I think I have a few more from the backlog I can pull for you guys, but we also have something that I haven't discussed, but they just made the announcement today internally. But the World of Podcasts feed, even for people that aren't going to be there, is going to be pretty much what a lot of podcasts are doing. So even though I'm gone, a lot of other shows are doing that. And again, I'm not going to be involved directly with that podcast, World of Podcasts gig, because I'm going to be doing the moderation for the Overwatch panel one. So, and the Hearthstone one is just jam packed with creators. So
Yeah,
it was probably best for me to make the decision not to be there on behalf of Velen's, for the sake of having some more people that actually have a chance to speak, because there's just so many.
Do you think Ro would let us have a copy of the episode? I mean, if
I'm
if our
sure
community
Ro
was
and
interested,
Seraphis would be fine about having us use it. But again, it'll be on the World of Podcasts feed. You can listen to all of the panels for any of the games. You can also, I know Coin Conceit will be uploading it, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
I think Wicked Good will probably put it up on his feed, and he's not directly in that panel. He's just on another one, but I'm involved with the thing, and they're all about serving creators. So if we want to put it up, we can.
Is Wicked going to BlizzCon this year?
He's doing the one of those 2 panels that they're doing. That's a digital panel, like called Con Before the Storm. They have at the venue, and then there's the Storm Before the Con. I think it's like they retconned it. So it's like on the 28th of October, and he'll be on that panel. But there's like a Warcraft centric one, and then there's one that's like General Blizzard, and he's on the General Blizzard one.
Okay, cool.
So shout out to Wicked Goods. I don't even remember the name of his podcast. Goodness gracious.
Off Curve?
Off Curve, that's it.
Yeah.
So Off Curve
That's
will be
actually one of my
represented
favorite
there.
ones. I like listening to Steve talk.
All right, well, let's talk about some card nerfs, shall we?
Yeah.
So we have 3 card nerfs, and the official announcement is in the show notes. We have 2 targets that made sense and 1 target that made sense for Wild. And frankly, the Mana Worm change should have been, should be something that you look at as being a Wild and a standard nerf directly, because it's such a powerful card.
Yeah, I can see that.
But basically, they increased the mana by 1 on Aviana from 9 to 10. They made Mana Worm 2 mana instead of 1, and they put up Giggling Inventor up by 2 more mana to 7 mana.
Yeah.
So, Giggling Inventor is the one that people have been rage chit-chatting about for a while. There's also rumors that they're like, well, is this going to affect everything? We just had the new nerf hit this week, as well as not just the news, but the update hit, right?
Yeah. It just kind of snuck in, like they said Nerfs live, and you log into the client, and it was there, but there was no, like, it's just there, boom. And it was cool because there was you didn't have to download a patch or anything. I loved it. I loved it that they could do that little hot fix like that.
So Grant, you want to let people know what they can do with regards to card nerfs that they do every time with regards to like dusting and stuff?
I mean, if you're new to the Hearthstone community, or maybe you're just not as experienced, whenever the kind of the standard procedure is whenever they nerf cards, if you have them, you usually dust them right away, unless you think you'll be using them. But even so, because dusting them costs you nothing because you get full refund. And so it's just really good to have the dust on hand because if they end up just not being playable, well, then you have full dust. Because then if you wait until after there is a window of time they give you to dust it before they kind of go back to its normal standard dusting value. So like for now, Mana Worm, you get 40 dust for a Mana Worm because it's a common. But if you wait too long, it'll just be the 5 dust. So, you dust it, you decide you want it again, you craft it again, and nothing's lost. You're good. I would do the same with Aviana giggling. Well, I myself, sorry, I'm leaning. Rob's waving me off because I'm leaning because I'm weak. Apparently, by the way, I judged percussion auditions for 7 hours today. That was fun.
Yikes.
So I'm like tired, beleaguered from sitting in chairs, and I'll probably just after the show play another 3 hours.
I know
of
what you
Overwatch
mean.
Just because that's what I do.
Purposely like standing up out of spite for your rear end. Like, no, you've been doing too much work today.
But you've done too much today. Take a break. Anyways, so dust your cards, and if you have them, and if you regret it, then just get your dust back. That doesn't cost you anything. I have found that many times I do craft them again, but I don't feel bad. It doesn't feel like I lost anything. I happen to have all 3 cards. I didn't have any of them in gold, unfortunately, so I couldn't take advantage of that. But
I opened a Giggling Inventor and crafted another one on the opening day because I was like, this card's crazy. So I have 2 golden ones. I can probably go dust today.
So you want to talk about? I want to start talking about like opinion-based stuff.
No, yeah, go straight into it.
Straight into opinion here, guys.
Yeah.
So I am not one of the people that I'm not entirely sure the nerfs were a good thing, to be perfectly honest. But I can see why they did it, and I'm okay with it because honestly, for me, for Hearthstone, I value variety probably more than I value anything else. I've been kind of on a search for like discovering how I like to play the game, and honestly, I would prefer if they had nerfed a dozen cards, I'd have been totally fine with it, unannounced, whatever, go for it because I like the unknown and the like. Ooh, what kind of game are we gonna have now? So I like the variety. In this case, with these cards, I think that they just kind of took a step back, and I think they created even less variety. My first thought was like, let's see, what deck was I playing right before Giggling Inventor? Odd Rogue, and I was doing really well with it on ladder, and Giggling Inventor kind of puts the hot to that. So guess what I'm going to be playing? I'm going to play Odd Rogue with no variation in the cards, So I played a bunch of games, and it was like, well, it's kind of it's kind of the same old,
Mm.
and it's hard to justify playing hundreds and hundreds of games with a deck that I already know how to play and I'm familiar with for the Orange Crystal, which I've already achieved more than once,
Yep.
So it's kind of like, I feel like the nerfs kind of just pushed it kind of regressed the meta. And the sad thing is like, think of all the cards out of Boomsday that just aren't worth anything. You know what I mean? And maybe that's just a different topic, but I guess we'll just bring it up. It's like, whenever they release a set, isn't it kind of a shame that so many cards are just
Filler.
worth less? They're just filler. They have almost no value because they don't ever see play. You know what I mean? Yeah, you have them and you have them as part of your collection. But I've always been the kind of person that if I'm not using it, it's not worth anything to me. You know what I mean? I've never been a collector for the sake of collecting. You know what I mean?
Well, you also have. I'm going to counterpoint that before we kind of move further because of.
Sure.
You and I and a lot of other creators are just like, I'm going to buy the cards and I'm going to have all of them, and then I'm only going to use the stuff that I need out of that. Whereas the filler cards fill the gap of, especially commons and rares, of being the substitutionary cards in the bridge to get you to something that you can use that's not ideal. Even if it's a non-replaceable spot that you have to replace in a deck to do something. That's just how they have to play because you don't have all the good cards. You don't have the epics. You don't have the rares. Or sorry, you don't have all the epics. You don't have all the legendaries. So that's what you have to go with. And I know that is something that a lot of players do glaze over. But
that's
when you do get into the critical mass time, when people are like starting to accumulate cards to the point that it's like, okay, I've been playing these cards for a couple months. I've got all the cards now that I need. I've done, I've farmed enough gold. I've farmed enough dust. I got it all, right? I've done my due diligence. I have all of the stuff. So looking through my collection, it's like all of this just looks like dust to me instead of cards, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I see it from both sides, honestly, but I do think that there is value to having them in the game as a whole, because any card game has tons of filler cards. You're like, why did they print this card? It's like, well, they needed to print another card that you can be frustrated at when you're pulling your packs that you didn't get something else, because it gives you it's the counter, right? It's the whole charge that you get for opening the card that you want. Is there's a lot of things you don't want, and that's
Right.
how it works.
It's kind of like with any sport. If the possibility of losing isn't there, then winning means nothing.
Yeah, exactly. You need to have some sort of counter to opening a bunch of useful cards. Because if everything's useful, then nothing's useful. That's kind of how it works.
Right. Yeah, I guess you're right. I see your point. I was just merely lamenting the fact that like there's so many cards that just they're they're almost good. Like I've been playing a lot of off meta decks. Like I played Even Paladin a lot last week because it was fun, and I've been playing Control Warlock this week, which we'll get into in a minute. And I've been
Healthy.
just trying to and I'm just trying to play decks that are interesting or fun or off the beaten path. Just because, for me, at least in this current meta, like I'm not probably the this is and it feels healthy for me. Like I'm in a situation where I don't really care at all about grinding for legend. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like I don't care at all. Like I hit rank 1 last month, and I got to start the month at 5, and I think I've been up to 4 and 3 stars, and that's the highest I've been. And I've been playing like an uber casual, except when I'm testing decks and trying to play them and learn them and
Yeah.
stuff. I play a lot more when I do that, but I don't care. It's kind of a nice feeling, and it's taking me years to be okay with it because the game has its teeth and its hooks in me. But being able to say, you know what, I just don't want to play right now, so I don't. That's kind of a nice feeling. So when I do play, I actually enjoy it. And when I lose, I'm not swearing at, the RNG and being angry and
The
salty and letting that carry over.
inanimate, the inanimate
Yeah.
useful tool in your hands.
Yeah. It's just like, yeah, I played a game. Like, so when I play, and it actually has helped me evaluate my play better. Like I can sit there because the tilt is not even a factor because I'm not really trying to achieve anything. It's like, other than just trying to, like, well, I want to learn this deck. That's the goal. Well, let's see, what did I learn about this deck? Well, I learned that I probably should have cleared the board every chance I got, rather than trying to be greedy and see if I could get a bigger board
Mm-hmm.
clear or something, silly like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a lot more enjoyable, and it's caused me to even tinker around. Like I was when mana worm the mana worm got nerfed to 2. I was like, well, what about even mage? Is that a good deck? Is that something that's possible? And so I
Oh
went,
yeah, I saw
played
that list on Twitter
some.
this week.
Yeah, and I went 50-50 with it. I always go 50-50 with
Sure.
a new deck. But and it was like, oh, this is fun, or oh, that's a cool idea. And I find myself, like, when I get into the realm of being a Timmy, like I'm a Spike by nature, but when I decide to choose to be a Timmy, I tend to just life tends to blossom a little bit more and be a little happier. Um,
The grass on your own
but
lawn seems to be a little bit greener than the one that your next door neighbors has.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, but like, I guess kind of bringing it full circle. So, I mean, the mana worm thing, honestly, they need to. I think I'm perfectly fine with that card going away. As much, and the thing was, is last weekend I played a crap ton of Burn Mage because I got really hyped on APX Void's Mage guide,
Yeah.
and that Mage guide was awesome. And I realized something about myself is I'm kind of an adventurous personality where I'm willing to try pretty much anything, really, at least once, just to know what it's
Just to
like
have it. Yeah.
to like. But I realized that when it comes to like actual decks, like I have no problem with trying stuff and just figuring it out on your own. But honestly, if you can find a guide written first, it'll save you a lot of time. Because once I read it, like I know that I immediately upped my game. My
You're
game on
right.
that deck was so much better, and it answers questions that you didn't know you had, like just like on the mulligan and why you keep certain things and why you do other things. So it's like, if you haven't played 1,000 games, you may not know what questions to even ask. But
Because
if
you
you
haven't
read a
been in that
guide,
scenario yet.
exactly, and if you read a guide before you do that, it's like, oh well, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I should be aware of that. And I'll be honest, it's something I'd not really done much of, but I find it paying off. As I had my phone and I was playing on my computer, and I had my phone out with the guide, or however you choose to do it. And so when I didn't read the whole guide right away, I read like some of the high points, but when I was queuing up in the match, I'm like, okay, Druid, just bumped my mic. Druid. And so I was like, okay, well, let's see, which Druid is it? So what's the mulligan? I would just read them out. Okay, this is the cards I'm looking for. And I would just go for those cards. And I would just try to be strict with myself and not like try to overthink anything. And then honestly, it worked out really good.
Yeah.
APX Void knew what he was talking about. Um, and it helped me. And as I played, when I had the correct cards, or more likely to have the correct cards on my mulligan, it tended to go a lot better for me. And it kind of felt like I had almost like a weird kind of safety net underneath me. So I felt like there was like a teacher standing over beside me guiding my play, even though it was just an article. You know what I mean?
Right.
So anybody who's trying to get good with any deck, I think, and something I'm going to try and make more of a habit of is seek out the person who made it or somebody who's really well known to do it, or well known at playing it, and then just read an article or a guide on it, or a couple different guides to get different perspectives. Because I think it'll save you a lot of time and a lot of hassle, and it'll kind of keep you from going, oh well, I tried it, I'm just not good at it, or I tried it, this deck's bad, or something like that, making kind of unreasonable conclusions because maybe you just don't know what you don't know. So that was something that I did. What else was it? Let's see. So, Giggling Inventor, again coming back full circle. I just think that was more of a nerf to Quest Rogue, an indirect nerf to Quest Rogue, more than anything else, and a little bit of a nerf to like
Mech Pally.
Well, not Mech Pally. Mech Pally hasn't really ever been an issue. I almost say like Token Druid. Token Druid would use that and abuse it. They'd put
it's
that
just a
down
1
and
turn
then they'd buff
delay,
it
like
up.
an ice block, basically.
Yeah. It put a
I mean,
little
there's
bit
all
of a
the
nerf
memes
onto it.
about Spreading Plague, but it's like Spreading Plague in a world where Spreading Plague is okay is a world where Giggling Inventor is not common. You know what I mean?
Right.
So there's a lot more counterplay and a lot more strategic decision making that you have to make when both of those cards are in the same universe.
And I think that Giggling Inventor going away makes Odd Paladin and Odd Rogue and aggro fast decks, the board centric fast decks, I think it makes them better.
Yeah, so
it's
we're going to
one
see a
less
little bit
thing that
more
they have to plan
diversity within
around.
the fast stuff.
Which is fine with me because I tend to I like to play decks like that. I've been working on trying to get better at them, and I like those decks. And I noticed that there was not as much of that in the last few weeks, in my play. So
And I kind of agree with you
what?
because like for the Giggling Inventor change, I was like, this card is just going to be the card that people whine about until it's changed. And even if I love the card or even if I hated the card, I was reserved in my own mind to think, doesn't matter. My opinion literally doesn't matter because there are enough people crying about this card that it's going to change. And again, like if the community is whining about a specific card, there's a little bit of truth in every lie. It's like how I like to look at it, right? So there might be some fringe cases where the card is obtuse and a big issue for you, but at the end of it, it's like it's a neutral card that's really strong. And Blizzard's retconned. It seemed like this card existing seemed to retcon a lot of what Blizzard Team 5 in particular had said was a design decision going into why Hall of Fame exists. And then they print this like 2 years after that statement, right?
Yeah.
So like, oh, we're rotating this card out because it's an extremely powerful neutral card at a specific mana cost where there's not a whole lot of other tools that do what it does. And it's in every deck. And they've kind of like been, it seemed, I'm not trying to like accuse Team 5 of anything in particular, but I'm trying to say that for those of the folks that are advocating for the card to remain unchanged, they say, well, it's not in every deck because even decks don't have access to it. And like that seems really, really weak foundation to stand on. Yeah. Because like the existence of odd and even decks basically just means that you have an existing choose any cards that you're willfully taking a hit on to include an effect and a single card. Not that you have a super powerful neutral card that fits into a normal archetype and into one of the two souped up ones. Whether or not that's good for the deck and the card that goes with it doesn't matter, but if anything we've learned, you give a card that is extremely powerful defensively to everyone, it's going to frustrate a lot of players because everyone has access to it. And this is something that we've mentioned over and over and over and over and over and over and over again on our show and on everyone's shows. You print a card, you put it in the neutral set, and it's not a legendary. That means everyone has access to that twice as a consideration at the very least, even if the card sucks. And then if you print one that is a legendary, you still only get one shot at it. But at the same time, that card is still accessible to everyone. And we've been seeing people frustrated like, well, why did you print this card? Why did you print this card? It's like single use. It's like, well, what ends up happening is that the neutral card that they print as a legendary, i.e. Togwag I'll use as an example, or Mecha Cthulhu, is somewhat of a pinnacle of the set. And they want everyone to kind of have access to it.
Mm-hmm.
And what they've been doing now is they've been saying, well, this is a pinnacle of the set. We're going to give it to one class. But with Boomsday, they have like the 1-2 punch with Mecha Cthulhu being a really cool concept that fits the theme. And then you have Boom, Dr. Boom Return, right?
Mm-hmm.
But Mecha Cthulhu and Togwaggle are not cards that you include in every deck.
Yeah.
They're powerful tools that everyone has access to, but it's not great for everyone, even if you can build the archetype that fits them. So, to me, if you're going to print a card and you want to put it in the middle of the set and you want to give access to everyone, it shouldn't be good for everyone. It should be good for only a few of those things. And if you don't give them that specific label, you're just like, okay, well, the card, I want it to be a good tool for these 2 or 3 decks, and that's it. And not even decks, but just classes.
Yeah, I think the canary in the coal mine on Giggling Inventor was when everybody started running Blood Knight. When Blood Knight became a common occurrence in the meta, which it has never been, right? Blood Knight, like I before Giggling Inventor came in, I could count on one hand the amount of times I'd seen somebody actively, intentionally play Blood Knight that was not an RNG.
And
know what I
maybe
mean?
that's why they printed the card, It's like we have this card that's been a staple of our classic set for so long as a tech choice that is so bad because there's nothing that it can tech against that's strong enough to even warrant its use.
Or predictable enough.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And
so there's
so,
this is me countering why Giggling Inventor is probably okay. But again, this is like old news at this point.
Well, I think Giggling Inventor would have been more okay with the community had Quest Rogue still not been in rotation.
That could be very true, but again, you're gonna hear it from someone, and it's gonna be a little bit of a quieter outcry if it's from the wild community or if it's from us.
Yeah, I honestly think it nerfed Token Druid a little bit because Token Druid being able to put Giggling Inventor, slow you down, and then put down Spreading Plague 5/6 like that. That's pretty tough to deal with.
It's the whole Curvestone return
thing.
of like what was it, Seeker Pally, right?
Yeah.
It's like play this on 3, this on 4, this on 5, this on 6, this on 7, this on 8, and your game over.
What was that meme? I think Disguised Toast put out. If you want a funny one, he puts a Curvestone lyrics to like the whole new world from Aladdin. A whole new new world,
a whole new curve.
And it's like I put this card down on 1, and and it goes through the exact Curvestone, and it fits really well.
That's
pretty
funny. That's funny.
But,
well, let's talk about Mana Worm real quick on my end because you've been able to kind of cover your thoughts on this one. But this is one of those things where mage experts like APX Void use this card as the centrifugal force to get the ball rolling.
Sure.
And I'm just going to say it. This is the Undertaker that no one thought was a problem. That is.
Yeah, I could see
it's
that.
Basically Undertaker Leper Gnome status of problematic 1-mana cards. And like Grant and I said, in the past, if you have a 1-mana card and it's too strong and you nerf it, it's almost always going to be, like they do in every nerf, increasing the mana cost or reducing the power, right? Yeah. In some way. And doubling and changing the mana cost by 1 at 1 mana is one of the few times where you can say they doubled the mana cost of this card. It's very rare to see a 2-mana card go up to 4, and even more rare to see a 4-mana card go up to 8, okay? And furthermore, there's never been a nerf, I think, in 4 to 8 or even 5 to 10. I've never seen these nerfs or changes to cards ever, even in the alpha. But there's few and far between cards that went from 2 to 4, i.e. Blade Flurry. And there's quite a few alpha cards that did that. I think Starving Buzzard was one of the ones that went from like 2 to 5 or something crazy.
Starving Buzzard got nerfed to the ground. Starving Buzzard, I remember back in the Undertaker 100 Days how awesome it was. I remember thinking, wow, this is great. And
it was such a cool concept.
Yeah.
And now it's just
5
gone.
mana, I'm like, why is this card 5 mana? Nobody can play this. This sucks.
Yeah. So anyways, Mana Worm was and still probably could be too powerful because now I'm thinking can I just play an even mage with a 2-mana mana worm and like stomp the yard? You know what I mean? Like you can really do that now. So it's one of those things that I appreciate the card nerf because I think it's too strong long term and it is limiting a lot of their early game design space for mage. And on top of that, it's one of those things where every time they change cards and every time they introduce cards, what's the first thing that Grant and I love to go to? We love to think about even and odd. Ever since they went with that, it's like, this is such a cool concept because every time you see a new card, you actually have 3 complete new veins that you can think about. And then while the quests are still in play, that's a 4th. So you have 4 archetypes for every class that you have a baseline before you even start considering styles of play. Yeah. So, and I'm not even saying these are archetypes. These are just like deck building restrictions that you can start looking at.
Right.
Everything is possible. Odds only, evens only, quest centric. And you have that for every class. And then you're like, okay, so do I want to do any of these 4 things? Can I do them aggressively? Can I build a combo? Can I make it more control-y? And can I go more of like a mid-range, kind of just like a natural curve and like fill it up a little bit sooner rather than later at 10?
Yeah.
So anyways, that's what I'm thinking with Mana Worm. I felt like this is a change that needed to happen at some point. And I feel like anybody that understands fast mage decks as a whole as being insane, this has to happen.
Well, if you've ever played against a mage and they were able to go Mana Worm, coin Mana Worm, and you couldn't deal with it right away, that sucks.
And even if you can, it's usually over.
Yeah, because a mage just has to draw anything, and then you're dead. So
Undertaker, coin Leper Gnome, it's the same scenario.
Yeah, that's true. Do you want to talk about Aviana? I mean, I could talk about Aviana for a little bit, but
I don't have any opinions on Aviana. I feel like them nerfing this card just says Wild doesn't get to do anything nuts for the rest of time with this card anymore, and that's the reason they did it. Is that you had your fun, it's over. I
played a few dozen games with the Starliner Druid, clawing my way from rank 25 to rank 18 in a Wild because I haven't played much Wild this last couple months. Not that I dislike it, I just haven't thought about it because I've scaled back my games in general, so Wild kind of took a back seat. But again, when I was playing it, it was super fun, and I think by nerfing Aviana, I mean, I get it because a 9-mana card in Psych Mill and allow you to get a 7, 8, and 9 mana in a single draw is crazy. Being able to tutor those things into your hand is nuts to me.
Now they're asking you to have Emperor by the time you Psych Melon. That's basically what they're asking. And then you basically have to Psych Melon to thin the deck, draw Aviana later, and also have Emperor ready to go.
It makes a lot of sense because you have to manage your hand better. It puts an extra hurdle in a combo that was actually quite easy to pull off. I played a lot of Starliner. I thought the combo was actually ridiculously easy to pull off. It's not hard. You just had once you got the swing of it, and you knew kind of how to do it, and you knew like how you needed to draw cards and manage your hand and stuff. No problem. It was really, I actually thought it was quite simple for a deck as that powerful, because a lot of times power levels at least in the past, levels of power like that, like a la Patron Warrior or Malagos Druid or things like it, it takes some skill. Like you have to really pay attention and know exactly what you're doing. You can't just draw cards and then play them in the right order. And it felt like Starliner Druid in some ways, and I know I'm oversimplifying, please don't at me, that it felt like you played solitaire. You drew as much as you can, don't die, and then when the time comes, just drop it. And hopefully they didn't armor out.
I kind of agree with you. I mean, I don't think that ever since Patron and their first like 5 iterations, I guess, of Freeze Mage, I haven't really felt like the game has had something in it that was just like, this is really difficult to wrap your brain around and actually perform the combo and do it and have the correct ordering and memorizing board states and like doing a whole crap ton of math to make sure you're like planning out your turns for like 4 or 5 turns. It's just like, no, I just need to draw these cards and then play them out and it's over. I mean,
see, what are the decks that were like that? Freeze Mage, and I would say by extension like OTK Mage with the fireballs with the Quest Mage.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, non-quest like OTK Mage. There's original OTK Warrior and Alpha was like that. It was really hard to do, but it was one of the most oppressive decks at the time.
if you're, and the thing is I'm all about like
Kind of started
only
with
good
Shutterwalk,
players
to be
can use
honest.
certain kind of decks. Shutterwalk is, I would say, a rather high skill cap in terms
I
of
think
being
that's one of the few
consistent
ones
with
that's
it.
still around. That's like relatively
Mhm.
still difficult to figure out, even though you're setting it up the whole game. It's still like knowing when you can do certain things is still hard.
Well, when you listen to a pro or a very good player, like when you listen to like Cream Puff talking about it, it's you realize all the things that you didn't know about it that they've figured out. Like, oh yeah, oh that makes sense. Oh yeah, you find yourself doing that. At least I find myself doing that. But I guess for me, I kind of want combo decks that are difficult to pilot to exist, and I want Questro can be a little oppressive, but I guess in my own thinking, I want decks that are difficult to pilot but are like they reward a good player. I want those kind of decks to be around
Yeah.
because for me, next to like enjoying the game, I like the notion of yes, this is a difficult thing to do, but if you can do it, you will be rewarded with a lot more consistency of win rate than somebody who's just a casual or somebody who doesn't study the deck or the plays and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like that's why that's for me. That's why I play Widowmaker all the time. I play Widowmaker on Overwatch because I enjoy kind of the aspect of the character, but it's hard. It's not easy to like choose to make the decisions and then like make the shots and stuff like that. But for me, that's the entire allure. It's not that I'm not adverse to failing because I look at it as like, yes, but if I can get good at this, then there's a lot of reward for that. You know what I mean? And so
So
there's that allure to it.
let's take this right into the deck here, because I feel like this is
Okay.
just perfect transition, because we are talking about a relatively difficult deck to play this time.
Yes.
And
Yes,
this
sir.
is a callback to my good friend and yours, Mid Game HS and Steven Sensei, who we had a 3-man call where we burned cards for a couple hours with this deck before Witchwood meta, I believe, or before
Mhm.
we had Boomsday. This is the deck that I was playing a lot. It runs 2 Kobold Librarians, 2 Defiles, 2 Doomsayers, 2 Gnome Feratus, 2 Howl Fiends, 2 Stonehill Defenders, 2 Treachery, 2 Hellfires, 2 Lesser Amethyst Spellstones, double Shroom Brewers for healing, Rin the Disciple for long games, Siphon Soul times 2, so 2 of these bad boys, Lord Godfrey himself in the flesh, or rather in the flesh twice because he's undead. 2 Twisting Nethers, double Void Lord, Blood Reaver Gul'dan, and the new change to the list is including a Mecharoo instead of one of those.
The Mecharoo is the most intriguing card, but it makes so much sense if you think about it.
It's also like, if you're wondering why it's in there, you should think about this as if you're running that Tainted Zealot card that would up the spell damage by 2. But the difference is Mecharoo is a little bit more flexible, because you can automatically get the trigger when you need a 1 and a 2. You can like have a bunch of things on the board that are like 3, 4, 5, and you drop a Mecharoo and you automatically get a 1, 2. So you basically have the power of doing a surprise round, whereas with Tainted Zealot, you needed a 2 somewhere, and it costed 2. Mecharoo, it costs 1, and you can do that whenever. So it fits into the curve a lot more naturally, and it's a little bit easier. Now, before we even start talking about this deck, I have to mention that this deck does have quite a bit of flex room.
It really does.
And the cards that are flex will be determinant on what you're seeing. So for starters, I will say that having 2 Treacheries and 2 Howl Fiends makes it so that when you're in a meta like we were before the nerfs, where everyone is got a lot of stall, that this makes a lot of sense by burning everything. I think the 2 Treacheries, the 2 Howl Fiends are the most necessary. If you want to burn even more, the Gnome Feratus are great. Now, does this card deck get better? It can. There's a card that lets you get double Battle Cries, I think, in Shaman. And if you play this in Wild, you can throw Brand Bronzebeard in here and get some real nasty business. But there's just a lot of really interesting things. And you're probably like, well, why are Stonehills in here? Well, it's for stall. It helps you get more tools. It helps get you more Void Lords, get you more other stuff that are at even cost that you don't have access to. So keeping that in mind. And frankly, sometimes I'll get them in the late game, and getting a Fell Guard is actually quite good, even though you're losing a mana crystal at the point where it doesn't matter anymore. It's real good to get a 4-mana 3/5 with Taunt. That's pretty solid.
Yeah.
But Grant, or actually, I think it's a 3-mana 3/5 with Taunt, and you lose a mana crystal.
Yeah. It's 3/5.
All right. So, anyways, Grant.
This is not an odd deck or an even deck, by the way, Rob. You
That's right.
You worded something.
That's right.
This deck is hard to play. I'll be honest. Jackie Chan was talking about how much he loved this deck and how good he thought it was, and there's a lot of potential here. But when I was playing it, it was definitely one of those decks that a lot of times I found myself in quandaries, thinking, "Geez, what's the play here? I have all these options because it's a true control deck in the sense of like you sit back and you do as little as possible. You know what I mean? You're kind of letting your opponent ask all the questions, and you're like, well, I'll answer you in a minute.
And they don't know
like
what you're playing either until it's too late a lot of the times.
Yeah. So and there's some things about it that are tricky. Like for example, if the meta is all shaman, Rin the Disciple's a liability. You want to play it, but they're just going to hex it, once they figure it out. So if there's a lot of Shudderwalk, which unfortunately I saw a lot of Shudderwalk when I was playing it, you know, um, it gets tedious, and it really Rin is a big giant win condition. So, you know, how you play it you need to just pay attention to what kind of meta you're in, because if it's an aggro meta, it's all right, but it'll drastically change how you mulligan and stuff like that. So I guess
and you can still beat Shudderwalk, just to be clear. Like
Shudderwalk.
This deck is weird. It's unfavored in a lot of ways, but like in the control games, when you have an unfavored matchup, it's really close. It's like a skill matchup at that point.
It's a skill thing, and basically, generally speaking, like I guess we'll talk about mulligan first. Generally speaking, when I'm playing against a deck, I assume aggro, because aggro is what's going to hurt me. Like if I can't stop their board from getting too wide, then I'm in trouble. Because what they're going to want to do is they're going to want to go wide, and they're going to get me down to where I can put down a Void Lord, and that's my only play to stop them from killing me, and they'll just silence it or do something to it. And that happened to me a lot of times where I was managing it good, but then I got in a position where I just had too little health, and they had too big of a board, and GG, I have the silence.
And that's why there's a lot of flex spots.
Right. So the thing about the deck that makes it tricky is there's not a lot of minions that are going to punch you in the face. There's not a lot of threats that you're scared of as an opponent. Like you see it, like, okay, well, Void Lord,
I'm going to kill it.
Doesn't bug me. I'm just going to kill it and just punch through it. And you're not putting Lich Kings down unless you get one off a Stonehill Defender, and you're not putting any like Doom Guards or anything that's really kind of like, oh, I better deal with this now. Everything is something like your opponent, if they're patient enough, go, well, yeah, I'm not really worried about that, because there's no cubes or anything like that. Although cubes might be decent to have.
Yeah.
But like you win. Rin is a win condition. You can stall out an aggro deck. You just put the wall up, and no, you're not getting by this. Have a nice life. But then there's the matchups where you have to use the Mekaru, Defile, Howl Fiend, Treachery combo. And it's the meanest thing to do to somebody. It's like, oh, I see. And you can also use Doomsayers incidentally like this too. But it's like, oh, I see you have a board there. And I see you have a pretty good mid of cards, because I see maybe you're a Malagos Druid and you're just building your combo. It would be a shame if something happened to those cards. And and then you put down, you put down the Howl Fiend, which, if you don't know, is a 3/8 card that every time it takes damage, it discards a card out of your hand.
I thought Howl Fiend was a 3/6, or am I wrong there?
I think it's a 3/8. But if I'm wrong,
I'm checking.
I'm happy to be wrong. It's fine.
3/6 demon. Whenever it takes damage, discard a random card.
Now, so, I would say the only thing about that card that feels super bad is like if that's the only real play you have, and your opponent has like an odd paladin, and they have a bunch of tokens on the board, they're going to happily trade every single paladin in there. So if you're foolish enough to put it down early, it's no good. The other thing is if it dies and you Gul'dan, it comes back. So your opponent can use it against you. So it's kind of like you only play that card if you have the combo in your hand. Otherwise, you just hang on to it. You don't want that thing getting down, because you don't want it coming back, because you will basically have like about a third of your deck burned, because your opponent will find a way to do it.
So to interrupt a little, I want to make sure that the win conditions are clear. The win condition is last long, burn your opponent's cards until they cry, destroy their
Or
deck,
burn their
whether
deck.
it be the ones in their hand or the ones in their deck, a la
Yeah.
Rin the Disciple,
Mhm.
and wall them out. But basically, the way that Midgame explained this to me the first time, he says you just keep killing everything they put out until they quit.
Yeah.
And then if they don't
That's
quit, then
basically
you
what
burn all the cards in their hand if they stop playing stuff. So basically what you're doing is you're saying you're going to keep playing stuff out of your hand, you're going to keep drawing cards the whole game. That's like how you play Hearthstone.
happens.
So when they're playing stuff out of the into the field, you just say no. So your deck is not giving questions. You're denying solutions. That's this deck is basically the anti-deck, the anti-hero style deck, right? You're just saying most people like to play Hearthstone. I like to make sure you can't. Like that's basically how you play.
It's interesting because if I was to liken it to a deck, it reminds me a lot of a blue deck.
It's a blue deck
Like a Magic.
from
Like
Magic.
a straight up blue deck. But oddly enough, like you don't
Hashtag
think of
not
Warlock
sponsored
as
this
being
week.
Blue. Yeah, we're not. No, we're not. Don't worry. We're not going to inflict MTG on you this week. Although it's a good game, I will say I do like it. But
if you've been playing, it's like blue.
it's very much blue. And blue, people that I know that play Magic are like, "Oh, you're one of those people. You play a blue deck. You are a horrible human, and there's a 10th circle of hell reserved for you."
They'll try to white knight
if
you with
play
their
blue.
white weenie deck.
The deck loses to a really good start. Like if you have a lot of aggro and a lot of stuff, it seems like it stands up pretty good against most things. I enjoy playing it. It can't, again, it's one of those things like for me, I'm in the point in time where it's like I'm not necessarily worried about playing a spike deck that's gonna just give me ranks. I think this is the kind of deck that it has a bigger payoff if you really get good at it, if you start mastering it.
I know that
Um,
worked really well for me when I played it before this meta even existed. And
mhm.
I'm glad that Grant brought this deck up today because this is a deck actually I really, really like. I'm that kind of player that everyone hates. But the flex spots I want to kind of get into here because I want to start wrapping this up here pretty soon. But the flex spots are actually your siphons and your twists. And you're probably wondering, like, what do you change? Like, what is your game plan here? So basically, you basically need to find out one of the few things that your deck does well and make that one aspect a little bit better depending on what you're seeing. And so what does that look like? Well, for starters, you only have 4 activators for your spell stones. So if you have spell stones in the deck, you're not actually really worried about making sure that you're getting access to activating them. Because in essence, you have access to Kobold Librarians and Hellfires while you have a Spellstone in your hand. Okay. And the next activator that you have would then be anything from Stonehill Defender if you can get the 2-mana 2/4s, the Vulgar Homunculus, they'll activate it as well. So the original version of the deck that I was playing, I would even lower my curve and just put those in there. Like straight up, just put those in there, or like put one of them in there instead of a Mekaru. Like that's really, really hurting you. The Mekaru is like helping your combo, but you're like, I don't get to the combo ever because I just die. Maybe that's something.
Could you sub out like Siphon Souls for Omega Defenders? The ones
that's something I hadn't
2/6s,
considered. But I think that's very viable. But you have to keep in mind if you're swapping siphons and twistings, you're not swapping them for a lower cost minion. You're swapping them for a 10-mana card. That's somewhat flexible.
That card's not a 10-mana card. It's a 4-mana card.
Yes, but it's Omega.
It's a 10-mana play, but you always make it to 10 mana with this deck.
That's true,
Getting
but
to
the
mana,
idea
no
of
biggie.
swapping these cards out isn't that your 10-mana plays are problematic because now you have 6 and 8 mana and you're just like, well, I just need to get rid of this single target or this multi-target, right? That's why the twists and siphons are there. So the other idea that you do is you put in Zola the Gorgon into this list because then you have a second Rin or you have another Shroom Brewer for a heal or another, like the most fun I had with the deck was actually not having the games where I milled like 8 to 10 cards from my opponent. Those games were the most fun when I played Godfrey on turn 10, clear the board, and then play Zola the Gorgon, and they just quit.
Okay, I'm doing that. That's happening. That's the next thing I'm doing.
And I highly recommend cutting the siphons before the twists because the twists are just like, oh my word, he has another one. Like playing the second
Another
Twisting
one.
Nether is honestly just about as good as playing Godfrey into Zola.
Yeah, because a lot of decks forever, like a lot of control decks in previous metas would only run one. Because it's kind of like it is the board clear, you know. It's the ultimate board clear.
Yeah. And then realizing that the combo of saving Treachery with your Howl Fiend, I feel like I think mid game and I had the same idea at the same time where we're just like, you don't have to shoehorn that combo. You have Doomsayers in the deck, which are great by themselves, but if they have a whole board, you literally have a 5-mana 2-card combo that can kill everything. It's a Twisting Mana for Twisting Nether with 2 cards for 5 mana instead of a Twist for 8. So you can do it early, but you have to have both of those cards. So then you're probably wondering, well, I have a second Howl Fiend. Well, then cut the second Howl Fiend. You can play something else. Play Zola. So I would say you could probably cut the second Howl Fiend for Zola for flexibility. You can play Howl Fiend into Zola into do Treachery. That's 9 mana. And then you're like, well, I didn't Defile. I didn't start burning their cards. Well, sure, but maybe you have a Stonehill Defender or just a bunch of weenies on the board, and you're not like maximizing, I'm going to get 6 cards out of the guy, but sometimes you just take the 3 damage from the Howl Fiend and you just keep burning them. And I don't know if you know this, Grant, but you can actually have plays where you set it up where you just Treachery the Howl Fiend and you do nothing. The following turn, you set it up so that the Howl Fiend doesn't die. You burn like 3 or 4 cards, and then you Shroom Brewer it. So you can heal their Howl Fiend so it doesn't die.
I hadn't tried that one, but it makes
so there's a lot of really wonky things you can do in the deck that are super unconventional. So you have to get your brain out of thinking linearly when you're playing with this deck.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that.
And also, furthermore, the Zola is really good when you don't have anything and you just need to play out your board early. So you have 5 mana and you're like, I just need to dump cards. So you play Gnome Feratu, Zola your Gnome. So you have another, you're just generating weenie cards, but you have something that like can contest, right? So anyways, that's just, and then again, you have the obvious one where you put a Void Lord down and they're like, yeah, I'm just going to try to go over the top of that, or I don't have anything for that yet, and you can just Zola that. Or better yet, you can Blood Reaver Gul'dana, get 2, and they're trying to go through one of them, and the other one's still up, and you can just Zola the other one.
Sure.
So a lot of this is kind of, what can I do with this deck in a really weird way, and how can I adjust this for what I'm playing? Because this standard box that you're looking at, this deck list, maybe right out of the gate, you're like, I'm just going to grab the deck from the guy and I'm going to play it. This deck actually rewards messing with it a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with you. I hadn't thought about substituting because my tendency is to say, well, Jackie Chan put it together, so I'll just take his word for it and not try to science the deck, so to speak. But yeah, I mean, like Siphon Soul always felt a little clunky. Like it's nice to get rid of a card, like a big threat, but when you have, there's so many spells in the deck that it felt like a lot of the draws that I had were very spell heavy, and I had to think. I mean, I was roping a lot because it's like, well, do I even have a play here? Do I even have anything I can do? Because it doesn't.
There's
feel
a
like I
lot
have
of do
anything to
nothing
do.
turns.
Yeah,
that does
a lot
happen.
of past turn. But it, you know, I think one of the angle I'm going to start taking for like deck explanations or deck of the week or whatever you want to call it, for us is I'm just going to try and seek out decks that are interesting or fun to play, because I think that's where the community needs to hear. And maybe I'm wrong, you know, but I know for me it's refreshing to play things. Yeah, you know, I know I'm not intending on necessarily losing, but I'm not worried about winning, if that makes sense. And so just like playing this deck was fun, and I actually was like, well, I lost, but I don't hate the game for losing. I'm not mad because I lost. Like, well, you know, I lost, whatever.
I felt the same way when I was playing this. You're like, well,
yeah,
I wonder, should I stop drawing cards like 6 turns earlier? You know, like when should I stop tapping? Because that's
right.
actually one of the things of the deck that I was just like, I lost that game because I tapped more, and I shouldn't have.
Yeah, I realized that really early. I realized that in a control matchup where it involves me wanting to blow their deck up or doing things like that, I had to start thinking really carefully, like, do I want to tap at all during this game? Or
yeah, and then if you're in a control matchup and you draw your Gnome Feratus, you're like, I can save these, or I can just literally start punching them right away. You know,
it just depends.
Yeah,
I mean, I always wanted Gnome Feratu in most matches because I just wanted to have board presence.
Yeah,
like I wanted to put something down. Especially if it's a board centric aggro-ish kind of deck. I wanted
Mhm.
like Nosferatu, not for the card burn, whatever. It's just to get something down on the board to try and trade or to become a body to deal with things, or
Yeah.
just as a shield. But I
And
think there's some
honestly, I feel like
definite
you can put a
cards that
Giggling Inventor in here. You can probably put 1 copy of the new ones because it's 7 mana. You can still do your defile
Giggling
turn.
Inventor.
You can
Trying
do.
to
You
have
basically get
fun.
a 1 and a 3 right away. So if they have a 2 health minion and a 4 health minion and a 5 health minion, you're just like, well, I'm gonna play Giggling Inventor and defile, and that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 damage.
I'd be interested to know what this deck looks like in Wild. I'm curious to like look at what substitutions, because I think the core is very strong.
Honestly,
I
it
think
doesn't
there's a
change
lot
a
of
whole
cards.
lot.
I don't think it does, but I think there's things you can do. Like I wonder if something like Implosion might be good because it's removal and it's something to trade with, so it could combat aggro decks. You know what I mean?
Honestly, I feel like if you're doing this in Wild,
Alganis.
you probably look at if you can put in a single copy of like a single or dual copy of cards where you're able to put cards back into your deck. That's probably what I'm looking to do. It's kind of like extending my deck to be a little bit bigger.
Keeping the blue flavor.
Because like if you're gonna be going for a while, you want to basically protect yourself from fatigue the best way you can. Because if you're in a control v control matchup with this deck, your goal is if you're control, you will lose every game. That's basically what you're trying to do. You're trying to dictate, are they playing control? If the answer is yes, then I'm winning. Because this deck is like, I am going to eat every single control deck unless they're running control combo burst with Malygos, and they can kind of catch me on the back foot randomly.
Yeah.
And I don't catch their combo.
Because the one thing that Warlock does very poorly is it really doesn't. It can heal full life, but it can't go past that because there's really not many options for armor.
Yeah, 35 is your
Warrior
max.
In Druid, yeah, it can like just armor out of range. You know what I mean?
Yeah, some builds of this deck included Plated Beetles. I'll let you guys know that. Plated Beetles there. Crystallizer could be an inclusion. The only problem with Crystallizer is it does the damage and the thing that Kobold Librarian does, but it doesn't synergize as well with your Defiles, and so that's why Crystallizer's probably not in the build.
Yeah.
And Homunculus, again, is another great build around card, but it's like, this deck archetype is like, I've got only 30 cards I can include, and a lot of these are really sticky. So it's like, the only adjustments you're going to make is like, if this card's not getting any value in these matchups, and that's the matchup I'm seeing a lot, then I'm swapping it for something early. That's usually what you're switching. Because this top end is like game over for a lot of decks.
What do you think of this idea? I have epiphanies sometimes. How viable or worth it or would Youthful Brewmaster be in a deck like this?
See, the thing about Youthful Brewmaster, I talked about this with mid game when we were playing it. I was like, I love this Zola card so much. He's like, well, the problem with anything that's not Zola, that's a bounce card in Warlock, is it's removing the board. Zola is generating more from what you already have. Youthful Brewmaster is recycling the existing pieces. So it's not a bad idea, but there's a difference between Brewmastering a Rin and Zolaing it.
Yes,
right.
I see what you mean. Yeah. That's. I hadn't thought of that, but that makes a lot of sense. Cool.
Now, if you're talking about Godfrey, it's relatively the same scenario, right? It just depends on what you're trying to do. Same thing with Nosferatu. Right.
Because Rin needs to die. You want Rin to die.
Yeah.
What about putting what's the card? The one that kills soul. The one that kills a minion gives you 4 health. What is it? It's I'm blanking out. It must be getting late. The 1-drop card that people use for Q block. The one that kills all the stuff. Or kills your guy, and then just so like you kill Rin and kill it.
The one that you used on Possessed Lackey and stuff too.
Yeah. I'm like,
wow, my brain is shut down. Hang on, I'll Google this while you keep talking about it.
Yeah. So I mean, like, I don't know that we have much more to say, but there's a lot of. If you do play this deck, I would recommend that maybe seek out a guide. Read up on it, a few guides, even if they're not people that you know well, because there's a lot of really good legend players that nobody knows about that hit legend every single month and are on the top few hundred that nobody knows who they are.
Dark Pact.
And I would recommend Dark Pact. That's right. Dark Pact is I wondered if that would be something to include there. But there isn't too much that you want to die. Although a Dark Pact on a Void Lord could be very useful, because if it's one of those cases where you're worried about them having a silence card and it's life and death, and you can Dark Pact the Void Lord and put 3 taunts up and then Gul'dan the next turn, that could be useful, because I have played a lot of scenarios where it's like, I want to play Void Lord. I also have Gul'dan in my hand. I know that if I play Void Lord, it'll probably get silenced and I lose anyways. But if I can kill it, it puts that up, and then I just Gul'dan, and then I have multiple taunts up, so I can stave them off. So a Dark Pact might be
I will say
interesting
that there's a couple games that I had when I was playing with Midgame and Steven where we're just like, I've only played like one demon. Like I've played something from my not my Shroom Brewer, what is the card? Stonehill, and then I played another one, which is my single Void Lord and the 3 Void babies that came out, and it's just like, I just need to play, and there's even games where I just play Blood River Gul'dan on 10 because nothing's happening, and it's like, do I need the demons? That would be great. Do they need to die? No. I just need to make sure that I have 2 mana every turn that is giving me health and hurting you.
Yeah, it's inevitability.
Yeah, bingo. So,
Yeah,
anyways, have fun with this deck, guys. It's really crazy. And if you have the cards for it, then try it.
And one last thing, if you do play this deck and you find some awesome inclusions, like because stuff we haven't talked about.
Shadow Flame is also a card that I hadn't talked about, but is a possible inclusion.
Yeah, Shadow Flame would be a good inclusion. But I mean, like, Shroom Brewer into Shadow Flame, boom, clears most boards.
Heal for 4, kill.
If you find something that works really awesome, like I pulled a Golden Hogger, I'm like, I wonder if Hogger would be in this deck. You know what I mean?
But consider Zola. Zola's the fun card that actually works.
Zola, yeah, I'm gonna try that one. But like, if you come up with something, let us know. I want, like, you must let us know. Nay, I demand you let us know. So.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's start wrapping up.
I think that's the show, guys. I have the link to the Twitter if you want to go talk to Jackie and ask him questions. I always do that, as well as the deck code will be on the website. That's going to do it for episode 160. If you guys want to find any of the show notes, the update from Eve, you can go check her out on Twitter. The website is VelensChosen.com. We have a VelensChosen.com link in the show notes that you can check out our merch. There's a merch link. There's for our shop, you can buy mugs, t-shirts, hoodies, tank tops, tote bags. We get a small cut of that. It's mostly just so you can kind of say, hey, I like the show. Boom, here you go. You can follow us on Twitter. You can join our Discord community. You can help us out on patreon.com/VelensChosen, and that will help us as well as Eve. And she's not separate from us, but like she's part of the team. It helps us keep the lights on, pay our bills. I know basically after BlizzCon is when, basically between BlizzCon and February, that's the period where all of our bills start coming in, just to keep you guys like a little bit of transparency. That's when we start paying for stuff. So that's when we're looking to do that, as well as once those bills kind of get paid, then we're starting to look at what can we do with our Patreon money that isn't just like putting it back into the game to kind of give you content and talk about it. So if you're looking to do that, spend a couple bucks on us every month. That would help us a lot, whether it be me or Grant. Doesn't matter. We're all getting paid through your support. We really appreciate that. And if you don't do that, we're also affiliates on twitch.tv/VelensChosen podcast. You can do some of that, and we'll get a cut of that as well. Thanks so much for listening to the episode. We really deeply appreciate any and all episodes that you do listen to. If you want to find us, we're also doing the videos on YouTube. I'm trying to export them when we do the live stream. I know that the time isn't always conducive for everyone. If you want to find Eve and give her some support, you can find her on Twitter with the tag LoreMasterEve. And if you want to find her in-game, it's also LoreMasterEve, but there's no ER. It's just LoreMasterEve, 1974. You can follow her other show, Knights of Lore, where her co-hosts are also enduring the non-Eve meta that is saddening us all. You can find that at twitter.com/Knights of Lore for more information on what they did. I know Ridiculous Hat of Coincancy did a really lengthy Hollow Knight lore thing for them. That was really fun to listen to. Grant, where can people find you on the interwebs?
Find me at WatchmanHS on Twitter. That's the easiest way to get a hold of me. in game. Friend me at, or not at, just Watchmen #1140. And of course, go to our Velen's Chosen website for VelensChosen.com for all the links to that stuff, especially the Discord. The Discord is the place to be. If you want to ask any question, if you are a newbie or a veteran and you just want to get plugged in, the community is a great place to learn and grow and just feel like there's more to the game than just playing a silent partner who doesn't say anything to you until you beat them and then they cuss you out. So,
Yeah. Discord's great
Yeah.
for that sort of thing to be avoided,
yeah.
or at least discussed about
Yes.
and vented about. Thank you
Yeah,
guys
and
again
there's other things.
for joining us. Grant, thanks for doing this deck guide. It's also a deck that he knew that I played in the past, so props to you for finding something that I loved on the back end. And it's also happy that the deck still works. I knew it would,
Mhm.
but it's just a matter of time when it would kick its ugly blue head again, quite literally. If you guys want to follow me, I'm on Twitter and Instagram with the tag NotRob. I do an Overwatch podcast called Omnic Lab. I'll be at the World of Podcast moderating the Overwatch event. If you're going to go to BlizzCon, please come find me, say hello. If you have social anxiety, totally understand. If you want to take a creepy picture, I'm all about that. I'll do a creepy picture with you. Just come say hi. I'll probably be wearing some Overwatch swag or t-shirt about Omnic Lab. If you guys like D&D, you can talk with me anytime. I've been talking with lots of friends. We had a full D&D week over the last 2 weeks because we finished our quest in our campaign. Shout out to Cap Correlator, Steven Sensei, and Smiley Chris for being amazing partners in DM for our campaign. We basically did our shop episode throughout the week. So we did all of our shopping instead of doing it in the game. We did it outside of our actual session. So we just went to the shops and bought stuff and did a little bit of RP with the shopkeeps, and then we left. So it was a lot of fun.
Nice.
Cool idea, especially if you're not doing it like the normal D&D groups where they're doing their sessions on like live streams and stuff. It's really nice to kind of have a couple of flexibility things to do outside of the tabletop. We do talk about it from time to time on conceptcraft.libsyn.com with my wife and I, and that's going to do it. I'm going to try to get back a bunch of SR that I lost in Overwatch recently, so that's what I'll be doing this week. I'm probably playing some Battle for Azeroth. If you guys are interested in the APAC region or an AM raid time on Mondays, you can hit me up. We have an AM raid time. We're still looking for like 2 more members, 2 or 3, to be a part of our team. We just got 2 more to kind of fill the gaps, but we do need more members, so please reach out. Thanks again for Velen's Chosen, episode 160, talking about Hearthstone nerfs and Control Warlock. We'll see you guys next week. And remember, not all who wander are lost. Adios.
Bye, guys.